Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton, and this is episode 99. We're almost to 100 people. It's exciting. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about long-term success, or how to not screw it all up once you get where you want to go. Welcome to discussing maintenance. So maintenance is a term a lot of people use as a destination, right? When I get to maintenance, as if maintenance is the finish line. But I want to say that maintenance is a verb. To be in maintenance simply means that you are maintaining your weight. So that means you're not gaining any significant amount of weight or losing any significant amount of weight. When I use the word significant, what I'm talking about is there are those normal little fluctuations with weight. Your weight isn't exactly the same number every single day, but it doesn't mean you gained or lost any body fat or gained or lost any muscle. It's just a normal amount of fluctuation in water weight that causes the scale to be a little higher or a little lower. So staying within that maintenance range would mean you're stable, as they say, weight stable. Different than mentally stable, but you get my picture. And maintenance is a verb in that people will often think of it as crossing a finish line. I've reached the promised land of maintenance, but it's more like surfing. If you're in maintenance, you're just staying on that surfboard and riding the waves. But if you stop actively engaging with what you're doing, you probably will end up in the water. So the first thing I want to just point out about maintenance is it's not a location. It is a activity. The other thing I want to point out is most of us, and if you've listened to previous episodes about periodizing your nutrition, you know that I think there are periods of maintenance we should engage in, not at the end of our journey, but during our weight loss journey. And so it's not reserved just for the I've reached the weight I want to be people. It's part of your cycle of what you do. So I think there is absolutely great reasons to be eating in a maintenance level, trying to maintain your weight before you achieve your end goal, because going through cycles of entering a period of maintenance does a couple of things. One, gives your body a chance to relax. It helps your hormones adjust to non-highly stressed levels, because periods of restriction are stressful for your body, not in a totally negative way, but in a way that has some limitations and will have some hormonal effects. So by adding in periods of higher food intake where you're attempting to maintain your weight rather than continue to lose weight, you will help a lot of these stress hormones and other metabolic hormones be in a better place to undertake a future fat loss phase, should that be your choice at that time. But the second part of why I think these maintenance experiences are very important is their practice. Because if you just restrict all the way to the finish line, then you get across the finish line, it's like, I don't know, it's like your parents kicked you out of the house when you turned 18, but they'd never left you alone at any point up until then. You have no idea how to self-regulate. You have no idea how to create your own rules. You only know black and white. You only know restrict, and you don't know maintenance. And now you're here and help. So when you get these little periods of maintenance on your journey to your final desired weight, you get practice. You get to practice what it's like. How do you need to eat to stay in that period of maintenance? Because for most of us in our history, we had two speeds. We had diet and we had binge. or we had, diet and we had out of control. And even if we weren't like full on binge out of control, we weren't good habits all the time, right? We didn't practice healthy eating for the most part. We practiced returns to unconscious eating behaviors. So we maybe have over time of trying to lose this weight on the weight loss journey this person may be on, learned better and better ways to behave, to be sane and healthy as we're losing body fat. But then we're so out of our depths with the maintenance part. Because when you open up the door to a little more room, a little more give in what you can eat, you're like, I don't know what to do. Because when you're in a cut or in a fat loss phase, you're dealing with a tighter budget, right? If your budget is real tight, maybe you're not earning that much right now. You're like, well, I got to pay rent and I got to put gas in the car and I got to pay the electric bill. And then I got like, I don't know, $10 a week to spend on things that I want to. That's it. You're not liable to get in a lot of trouble with your $10 spend, right? You don't have a lot of wiggle room there. Whereas when you're in maintenance, now you're, okay, well, I covered this and I covered the rent and I covered the electric. Wow, I've got a lot more to spend in terms of my caloric budget here. And your perhaps natural inclination might be to spend those at like the casino rather than, I don't know, a savings account or, therapy, like things that would actually be good for you. And so I'm not saying it can't include an occasional trip to Vegas, but it should primarily be investing in your future. And the same goes for your food, which is when you have that larger budget, how you live day in and day out and how you allocate your nutrition, it might feel a little overwhelming and you need practice at that. How do I stay in that range that's going to give me optimal health, feel the best, feel healthy and motivated? And then I also think that if you're doing this maintenance period while you still are aware you have overall some fat that you'd like to lose, it does kind of give you some guardrails. I think we're a little more cautious in there where we're like, well, I don't need to go too crazy. So it can help us practice some ways in which we can design that maintenance period. The other way I think it's really important, I think this is the third way, I'm not very good at counting, is that we may have never in our adult or teenage life not woken up with the thought that we should lose weight, right? Like I can say, even when I wasn't actively trying, I would think, I hope when I get on the scale today, it's lower. We wanted to be losing weight. I feel like it's very mentally freeing and nourishing to have your goal be that the scale didn't go down. Not that it went up, but that it didn't go down. It's a very different focus. And I think spending some time with that as your goal, it opens the door to a lot of places in your brain where there's some anxiety, where there's some unsettled parts. I know I'm making it sound very attractive, aren't I? But if you deal with those places now while you're still on your journey rather than waiting until the end, you can do it more gradually and slowly and in steps. And so often I find people get across the finish line approach to maintenance, get to that maintenance, then they have had no practice at how to eat. They don't really know how to properly plan a maintenance, what that even should look like. They fall into old habits and they didn't deal with the demons, the voices in their head, the anxieties, all those things that don't know how to be happy with where they are. So then instead of actively engaging in this maintenance, it's just going back to the old patterns of diet, regain, diet, regain. And, maybe they're only regaining 10 pounds at a time instead of 100. So it's more, rapid cycling, but still the two speeds. It's like trying to drive without using momentum, right? It's thinking I have to be like, gas, brake, gas, brake, gas, brake, instead of being like, just ease off the gas and just let us coast a little bit, right? It's doing it the hard way. So if you don't learn the power of maintenance, that is going to really shoot you in the patootie at some point in the future. So if you haven't yet lost all the weight you'd like to lose, just want to put a word in there to practice maintenance at various times. If you want more about that, I would go to my periodization episode, which was just a few episodes ago. Now, the other thing that seems to be very helpful for people trying to maintain weight loss successfully is that apparently 90% of people in a weight loss registry that responded to this question who had successfully kept the weight off exercised regularly. Now, this may seem surprising to you because you may know that exercise is not one of the critical components to fat loss. So when people say like who've successfully lost the weight, did they exercise or not? It's not an overwhelming portion of people did exercise. However, in the group of people that kept weight off long term, almost all of them exercise. And this is an interesting question because why would that be true? Why would it be that it's so many people on the one hand, but it's like not getting there, but staying there? It looks like it's less about the calories burned concept, which has a lot of holes in it with regards to losing body fat. It looks like it actually has more to do with the stress relief that exercise is part of. One of the most important maintenance tricks is having effective stress management techniques. The place where most people end up regaining the most weight after losing weight is during times of stress. And when we put these facts together, exercise is 100% absolutely a way to manage stress. It is something that improves people's well-being and their overall health. And having effective stress management practices is one of the key important factors in long-term weight loss maintenance. So remember earlier when I said practicing maintenance is a time to deal with your demons? It's so true. It's a continual process for some of us, but having the right stress management strategy, it's super central to long-term success. The other things that people who have long-term maintenance success seem to do is they stay accountable. So whether that's working with a coaching group, working with a coach, having like a social group around the topic that they meet with or meet online with, having that support, that's also very key. They also continue to track in some way. Now, that doesn't have to mean, tracking all their macros all the time, but they still utilize some form of tracking, whether it's journaling, whether it's macros, whether it's portion control, some way to track to make sure they're staying within the right rules for them. So long-term success, in my mind, really looks like a combination of things. It's knowing what maintenance should look like, having as active a plan for maintenance as you had for fat loss. It's having stress management planned into what maintenance should look like, because eating is a form of stress management. And dieting is actually a form of stress management. It is a stress inducer, but it is also a control method, right? So we exert control on our diet, and that control itself can be a way of managing anxiety that we feel, right? We don't become control freaks for no reason. So now when you're in maintenance and you no longer have the confines of this diet, you no longer have the kind of relief of a binge. Now what do you do, right? So you have to have new stress management that might include exercise, that might include therapy, journaling. It can look like a lot of things, and it probably doesn't look like just one thing, but planning for how you're going to manage stress apart from eating. So you've got an active plan for your maintenance that includes stress reduction techniques, includes knowing how you're going to eat. You have social support and accountability in some way. So you can see that successful long-term weight maintenance really is as much of a conscious effort as is the fat loss phase. Now, it feels different. It's more open-ended. You're hopefully happier with where you're at. So not saying it's the same, but it does require the same conscious effort because it's so easy to slip back into bad habits. Because quite honestly, doing something one time, there are no repercussions. You lost a bunch of weight and you are happy with the weight you're at now, and somebody brings a pizza for dinner and you think, okay, well, I can have a few slices. And you can, and your weight's not going to go up, or if it does, it's not going to go up much. And, you barely notice it and it's just a blip. And if you did that once in a while, probably that can be fine as part of your plan. But what more often happens is somebody brings over a pizza and then you decide to go out and then you do this other thing. And then, a month later, you've been eating just willy-nilly whatever you want. And that's what got you here in the first place. And so you have to have a conscious, active plan for how it's going to go when you get where you want to get. I just wanted to do this episode because I have several clients who are struggling with maintenance, quite honestly, more than they struggled with fat loss. And it's something that will be helpful for people to start thinking about sooner rather than later. All right, guys, I will talk to you next week. I hope you have a fabulous one. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.